Godzilla vs. Mothra was the highest-grossing Godzilla movie of all time to date in 1992, and was the highest-grossing Japanese film in 1993. But Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2 and Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla both fell short of this, each subsequent film earning less and less money. So, on July 15th, 1995, Toho producer Shogo Tomiyama decided it was finally time to end the Godzilla franchise in his 22nd and final film. Huge efforts were made to make sure this film didn't meet the same fate as its two predecessors. Kanji characters were put up in Tokyo that read Godzilla Dies, and the Toho pool set used for many famous scenes in the Showa and Heisei era was paved over for parking space. A couple days before the film's release, a Godzilla statue was put up in Hibiya Square, although in 2018 it was relocated and replaced by a Shin Godzilla statue. This film is fondly remembered for probably the sole reason of it being a nice finale to the already successful Heisei era, but I can't help but realize a couple flaws and that this film might just be overrated.
You what?
Without further ado, let's dive into my review on 1995's Godzilla vs. Destoroyah, or Godzilla vs. Destroyer, whatever you want to call it. The idea of killing off Godzilla first came up in 1993, where Takeru Okawara pushed for the monster's death, but Toho initially declined due to the monster making them so much money. But 2 years later, in 1995, as those big bucks slowly started to fade from view, Toho accepted Okawara's offer. Speaking of Okawara, he would be brought back to direct. Thank the Lord, I was getting really tired of that direction with Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. But that definitely doesn't mean the movie's saved. Godzilla vs. Destoroyah is crowded with subplots that do sort of carry the plot, but like Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, by the end of the movie, their importance has dissolved. One unrealized concept was to have Godzilla fight the spirit of the 1954 Godzilla. In it, the spirit of the 1954 Godzilla would possess Godzilla Jr., eventually turning him into somewhat of a reincarnated version of the 54 Goji. One draft even included Anguirus, in which Ghost Godzilla possessed Anguirus, turning him into somewhat of an Anguirus hound. I think it would be cool to have Anguirus in the story, and I think they could somehow fit him in there. Akira Ifukube would be brought back to compose the music for this movie after being absent on the production of Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. No one knew it at the time, but this would be Akira Ifukube's last Godzilla movie. Speaking of goodbyes, this would be legendary suit actor Kenpachiro Sasama's last time in the Godzilla suit, and also his best and most dangerous. To give it that burning effect, the Godzilla suit was given a mechanism allowing the head to move from side to side and also up and down, electronically controlled eyes, and another mechanism allowing steam to pour through various parts of the Godzilla suit. To create this steam effect, carbon dioxide was used, which would generate carbon monoxide, eventually making Kenpachiro Satsuma pass out multiple times. As usual, Godzilla Jr. would be played by Hurricane Ryu, and the new monster, Destoroyah, would be played by Ryo Hiraya. Yeah, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm pretty bad at this stuff. I appreciate both of their performances, but I think Ryo does a particularly good job portraying Destoroyah. The movie begins as we see Birth Island, Godzilla and Little Godzilla's home from the previous movie, submerged underwater. For some reason in the English subtitles, it's translated to Bass Island. We then flash to a Hong Kong airport, and as an airplane's landing, the pilots are shocked to see Godzilla rising out of the water. It's nice to see Godzilla attacking somewhere besides Japan for once, and the cherry on top is Ifukube's intense but thrilling main theme. Godzilla looks utterly amazing in the scene, and you can thank that to Koichi Kawakita's special effects crew. Hundreds of tiny orange light bulbs were inserted into the suit, and once enhanced with computer graphics, the effect was extraordinary. Scientists soon began to figure out that the reason Godzilla was red hot is because he absorbed so much radiation. They add another psychic girl to the already crowded cast of characters, which can get annoying at times when you already have Miki Sagasa, and they could have just made her role bigger. From there, we meet our quote-unquote human protagonist, but I don't know if I can even call him that because there's just so many human characters in this movie. It's Kenichi Yamane, played by Yasufumi Hayashi. Kenichi's the son of Shinkichi Yamane, who is the adopted son of Dr. Yamane, and Kenichi studies Godzilla as a hobby. We are then also introduced to the sister of Kenichi, Yukari Yamane, played by Yoko Ashino. And now for our final Yamane, who we haven't seen since the 1954 original. It's Emiko Yamane, played as usual by Momoko Kochi. Sadly, 3 years after the film's release, Momoko Kochi would tragically die after being diagnosed with cancer. She will be remembered fondly, being probably the first person to come face to face with the Big G. She also contributed to the fact that Godzilla has always been obsessed with the ladies. Anyway, enough about the characters and on to the monsters. We then get a nice good look of our antagonist of the movie, Destoroyah. Destoroyah is a giant crustacean that got mutated by the Oxygen Destroyer, but of course that doesn't make much sense. First of all, how the heck do you get mutated by the Oxygen Destroyer? If you even get close to it, you'd immediately die. And second of all, if the Oxygen Destroyer was set off in 1954, then the crustacean must have been mutated in 1954, right? So then why did it wait all the way until 1995 to attack? Throughout the movie, Destoroyah takes on many different forms, and the man responsible for this was none other than concept artist Minoru Yoshida, who designed each form. Meanwhile, Godzilla is spotted in Tokyo Bay, so the Super X-3, an updated version of the Super X-2 from Godzilla vs. Biollante, is sent to take care of him. The Super X-3's cadmium missiles and freeze lasers and all that fun stuff is shot at Godzilla to minimize his max destruction. And hey, it works! This scene also has the most satisfying shot I've ever seen. Back in the Iraqi Coliseum, the military's busy defending themselves against a bunch of juvenile Destoroyah forms, when they all join together to form a bigger Destoroyah. A lot bigger. Suddenly, little Godzilla is spotted on the beach, but not so little anymore. Now he's Godzilla Jr., a more hunchback version of his father. With that quick thinking that remained from his previous self, Junior suddenly got the bright idea that he could take on Destoroyah, all by himself.
No.
But maybe little Junior isn't as stupid as I thought he was, because for the first part of the fight, he actually has the upper hand. But that quickly goes away as Destoroyah starts sucking his guts out, little creep. Fortunately for Junior, Papa Godzilla shows up in Tokyo Bay and he's ready to smash some Destoroyah brains. While Godzilla's taking all the time in the world to actually get over there, Junior blasts Destoroyah into a building with his atomic breath, presumably killing him. It then, in a very unrealistically fast manner, turns into nighttime, and Godzilla and Godzilla Jr. have a nice little reunion. During this scene and some other scenes in this movie, a goofy-looking Godzilla Jr. prop was used to differentiate the size between him and the big guy, as the Godzilla Jr. suit they had been using was way too close to the size of the Godzilla suit. Much to our hero's horror and surprise, a giant shockwave erupts where Destoroyah was last seen, and the monster transforms into its perfect form. Destoroyah takes flight and goes into battle right away, ramming into Godzilla and knocking him over and grabbing Godzilla Jr. by the neck and taking him high into the air. This scene is probably where this movie gets remembered the most. We already knew Godzilla was going to die, hence Toho's major publicity stunt, but to see Godzilla's own son murdered by the very thing that was mutated by what killed the original Godzilla is just so chilling, but it works. After Junior is dropped onto a building by Destoroyah and then fried by its heat beam, Godzilla starts to cry in a very tragic moment. Then, with all that rage, Godzilla starts marching towards Destoroyah and the final confrontation is set. At this point in time, Godzilla is so scorching hot with his high levels of radiation due to his upcoming nuclear meltdown that even if Destoroyah is stronger than him, the monster doesn't even stand a chance. Although this doesn't stop the Super X-3 and some Maser tanks from giving Godzilla a hand, ensuring Destoroyah's death. With a couple final blows from the Maser tanks, Destoroyah is finally defeated, which I think is pretty annoying because Godzilla was really the one doing all the work, yet G-Force gets all the credit. As blasts of nuclear energy are erupting from his back and his temperature approaches 1200 Celsius, everybody goes quiet as Akira Ifukube's Requiem theme plays. The G-Force tries to tone down Godzilla's meltdown, and although a lot of buildings are destroyed, no one seems to be severely hurt. Although, as the radiation levels drop, we see who is responsible. Godzilla Jr. has absorbed his dad's energy, and now he's the next Godzilla. Godzilla vs. Destoroyah would be released on December 9th, 1995, and would make roughly $35 million at the box office, a big improvement from the last two movies. Earlier in this review, I said that this movie could potentially be overrated. I take it back. This is a spectacular closing to my favorite era of Godzilla films, and I think what I was trying to say is that this movie is crowded with just the tiniest bit too many subplots. I love this movie, I really do. I love Burning Godzilla, he looks so awesome. I love Destoroyah, I love Godzilla Jr., I love the set design, I love Akira Ifukube's phenomenal score, and I love Kenpachiro Satsuma and Megumi Otaka's final performances on this franchise. But with the Heisei era series of Godzilla films wrapped up, we now go back to TriStar Pictures with their recent efforts of making their Godzilla film. After Terry Rossio and Ted Elliott left the project, John D. Bont was hired to helm the film, although he later left in June of 1994. 2 years later, in 1996, after the release of the commercially successful Independence Day film, Hollywood duo Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich were now set to take this Godzilla film in a new direction. Next up, we dive into TriStar's bonkers and sometimes outright terrible take on the iconic character. Until next time.
No.